My husband, 27 male, and I, 28F, got married 9 months ago, and have been together for 4 years. My husband is the type of person that stays to himself unless it's absolutely necessary or completely unavoidable. He's quiet, and doesn't really talk to anyone unless he really enjoys their company. He's a gamer, and prefers to spend his free time alone playing video games. We joke that he's a hermit, because he hates leaving the house. If we do have to go anywhere, he gets really anxious after about an hour or two in public before he's begging me to go home. On the other hand, I love talking to people I care about and seeing them often. I like for my husband to be nearby or in the same room whenever possible, even if we're doing different things. I take every chance I have to get out of the house, but I don't really enjoy going places and doing things by myself. I try to find those little opportunities for connection, but it's been a struggle. Now the problem, 3 nights ago, we got into an argument that ended with me sobbing, begging him for more attention and affection, and my husband telling me, "I ask about your day and eat dinner with you sometimes. You should be grateful for that, what more do you want?" I'm not even sure how the argument started that night, but it wasn't the first time we've had this fight, and it's gotten progressively worse since the wedding. Whether it's his phone or computer, my husband is always glued to a screen, and he doesn't even bother to look up at me when I try to talk to him. It has gotten to the point where he will come home from work and sit outside in 95+ degree heat for hours to play on his phone without being disturbed. He'll only come inside for food or to use the bathroom until it's time for bed, and he'll do this all without ever saying a word to me. I've told him I was lonely, and that I missed his company. I've asked if he lost interest in spending time with me. In the past, we tried to find solutions. Sometimes we'd follow through, and sometimes we didn't. Lately his response is always, "I'm a boring person, and I'm just really tired from the heat, it's summertime." We live in the southern US and he works construction. But his comment about being grateful is a new low for us, and while emotionally I'm still starving for his attention, I don't know how to move past this. I know my husband idolizes his parents' marriage, separate in content. They spend most their time apart, and only really come together for meals and sleeping, and the occasional check-in or serious conversation here and there. While I adore my in-laws and can clearly see how in love they are, I do not want my own marriage to be like theirs at all, and my husband knows this. So why should I be grateful for the bare minimum, if I can even call it that? What the fuck does that even mean, anyway? Does he think I don't deserve more? Am I not worth the effort to him? I'm angry. I'm hurt. I am so fucking sad. I don't want to wear my wedding ring. I don't want to share a bed with him. I'm not even interested in talking to him anymore. I've come to the realization that I don't want to be with someone who makes loving me feel like a chore. My best friend thinks I should try talking to him again, tell him how I feel and try to work it out. I don't think it will get us anywhere, as there's no point in having the same conversation and hope that it will suddenly change things. We've tried couples therapy before getting married. It did help us through some problems we were having, shout out to the Gottman method, but my husband complained about it a lot. He didn't see the point of the activities we did each session and straight up refused to do the homework assigned to us. I'd suggest trying therapy again if I thought it would help, but I don't see any outcome that makes me feel like he's paying me more attention without making my husband miserable. Divorce feels like a massive jump, and it would be super messy. Both of our names are on the deed to the house, all of our money is in one shared bank account, and his mom just co-signed for a car with me and added it to her insurance policy to help us save money. Our state requires a minimum 6-month separation period before filing. My husband has made it clear that he's 100% against divorce being the solution to our problems, so I don't think he would let it be a peaceful or easy separation. Even now, as I type this, my husband is outside, watching a movie on his phone. He hasn't made a single attempt to talk to me today, except to ask if I paid a medical bill. I've been crying ever since he told me to be grateful. I feel trapped in a failed marriage. It's like the last 4 years were all for nothing, and I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this situation. I'm sorry, but this is not going to work out. You two have different needs and expectations. While that can be improved by counseling, it sounds like the core difference are really about who you are as people. The only reason my parents are still together is because their religion does not allow for divorce, and their status within their church community is too important to them to risk ruining their image. My parents resent each other in silence. I want nothing like my parents' marriage. We share a lot of the same interest. Same taste in music, same love for horror movies. I actually enjoy video games too, I just don't commit nearly as much time to them as he does. And he wasn't always like this. In the beginning, he'd go outside for a smoke, maybe doom scroll TikTok for 15 to 20 minutes, then come back inside and hang out. We'd cook together, talk about our day, maybe even watch an episode of a show or the first bit of a movie together. Sometimes I would even sit outside with him. I don't know what happened, but that all started to slowly change after we bought our house last year. When he does actually give a shit, he's an incredibly kind and caring person. I always had a smile on my face around him up until this week. Update 1. I want to answer some reoccurring questions. No, my husband was not always like this. I knew he was an introvert because we were friends for 2 years before we started dating. I fell in love with all his little personality quirks, and we've had long discussions about both of our expectations long before the idea of marriage was ever on the table. I never wanted to fix him, nor did I ever expect him to change himself for me. However, I don't expect the internet to understand the intricacies of a relationship between two individuals based off one post. In the beginning of our relationship, I gave him his space when he needed it, but he would always return the affection that I needed from him. This avoidant behavior began right before we got married, more on this later. My husband is not autistic. He was tested twice as a child, as I found out from my mill. He's just very antisocial. Together, we have a very small and close-knit group of friends that he really enjoys being around. Outside of those chosen few, he doesn't like people. However, we both have untreated yet high-functioning ADHD. It was my husband's idea to do couples therapy before getting married. At the time, there was nothing wrong in our relationship. Simply put, we both saw the benefits that premarital counseling could have for us in the long run: how to effectively communicate emotions, how to properly resolve arguments, sharing household responsibilities, and keeping our marriage interesting. May 10, 1950, years down the road. My husband complained because most of the activities we did were at least 20 years old and felt outdated, i.e. taking messages from the landline voicemail. Who the fuck still uses a landline? That being said, we still learned some great tools that we have been able to implement in our marriage, and they work really well for us, so we stopped therapy once we felt we no longer needed a mediator. Update 2. Sunday night, I decided I was going to leave. I knew I needed some genuine time and space away from my husband to get my head straight and figure out if a divorce was really what I wanted in this situation. So I called my parents and arranged for them to keep my dog for a couple of weeks. Yesterday morning, my best friend told me she was getting a guest room ready for me, and I started packing up my things. My husband came home from work a little early and saw all my stuff by the front door. He started crying, and asked between sobs if I was leaving. All I did was nod my head, and continued packing. What happened next feels like a blur. It's important to note here that a storm had knocked our power out earlier that morning, and it had not come back on at this point, so the house wasn't as cool as usual. My husband's crying became faster, and I heard him mumble something about a headache. He dropped his work stuff and stumbled to a bathroom, then started vomiting. Curiosity got the best of me, and when I peeked in to check on him, I knew something was wrong. His breathing had become shallow and rapid, and he was sweating more now than when he had walked in. He looked pale, and was slurring his words a little. When I put my hand on his neck to see if he was okay, his skin was clammy and burning up. I realized in this moment that there was a strong chance he was having a heat stroke. I helped my husband out of his work clothes and into a cool shower, then went find him some loose-fitting clothes and ice packs. Once he was out of the shower and dressed, I drove him straight to the small emergency room down the street. After an initial assessment, it was determined that my husband was probably not having a heat stroke, but severe heat exhaustion. His body temperature started coming down after they put one of those, air-filled cooling blankets over him, but he was still very weak and dehydrated. The doctor decided to keep him for observation while doing a few rounds of 4 fluids, and we were able to come home in the middle of the night after a bunch of different tests were done to make sure there was no damage to my husband's organs. While we waited, we had a lot of time to talk without any distractions. There was a lot of crying from both of us, but we finally got to the bottom of things. I won't bore you all with the details, but 2023 was not a good year for me. It started when my husband's truck flipped after getting hit by a drunk driver. We were wearing our seatbelts, and managed to walk away with only some aches and bruises, but I developed PTSD and began having panic attacks while driving. I was under a ton of stress from planning our wedding, which caused high blood pressure and horrible migraines. At the same time, I was experiencing massive burnout from working in healthcare the last 4 years and during the COVID pandemic. I was diagnosed with manic bipolar disorder, and was coping with an infertility diagnosis all within 6 months. My mental health was tanking, and I honestly just needed a little extra emotional support. This is around the time the arguments for more attention began. My husband and I eventually sat down to figure out a solution to my worsening mental state, and we both agreed that I could benefit from taking some extended time away from work, seeing as my symptoms were made worse by stress. My husband was happy to let me play housewife for as long as I needed while he provided for us, but I got bored easily staying home all day. I made the decision to quit my job last Christmas, and took a higher paying, part-time job after the start of the new year. Even though my mental health was getting better, the arguments over attention started to get worse. My husband started to withdraw a bit, and what started as "give me 15 minutes to finish this game, hen we can watch a movie or go grab food," turned into, "go ask a friend to hang out or pick up some extra shifts at work if you don't want to stay home." I did those things, and even started reading more, and finally got around to decorating our house. It was clear he wanted his space, so I kept busy. I tried to find things to do together that he might enjoy, so we've planned 4 vacations over the next year for us to look forward to, our first trip being just 2 months away. I still felt lonely and continued to ask for affection, but it only made him withdraw more, and as summer started, his reason was being too tired from the heat. Now we've had a lot going on in our lives over the last month or so. I made the decision to start working full-time again, and I was a little nervous about it, which probably prompted me to bring up the need for more attention. My original post was less about his behavior as a whole, and more specific to his comment about being grateful. This comment was completely out of character for my husband and caught me off guard. In the moment, my feelings were hurt, and I truly believed he meant what he said, that I should be grateful for bare minimum treatment. It made me question our entire relationship, and whether or not this marriage would work if that's how he truly felt. Needless to say, the heat really was messing with his head. When I asked my husband why he thinks I should be grateful for how he's been treating me in our marriage, he doesn't remember saying that or even having the argument in the first place. The entire weekend, he knew I was upset with him, but he couldn't figure out why, so he kept his distance until he felt like I had calmed down enough to talk about it. Coming home and seeing me ready to leave was his tipping point. Turns out, my husband has been severely depressed since switching crews at work. His last superintendent dropped the ball on his promotion before sending him to work overnights on a chemical refinery turnaround. When that job finished, my husband got placed with a superintendent that openly does not like him, and has a known, documented, history of treating my husband badly due to the color of his skin, or lack thereof. Over the last few weeks, this superintendent has been giving my husband a really hard time, and is now refusing to sign the company endorsement paperwork for him to begin operator school. My husband has been keeping this all balled up inside, letting it eat away at him, because he was too worried the stress of the situation would flare up my symptoms and trigger a manic episode. That's why he had been isolating himself so much, and paired with the heat, he had completely checked out mentally because he was trying to protect me. I'm sorry to disappoint so many of you, but I love my husband, and have decided to stick by his side as we work through this together. My husband has agreed to set timers in order to limit his screen time. We are going to try therapy again, both together and individually, to work on communicating better and dealing with stress. Right now he is still resting from the heat exhaustion, and hopefully he'll be better by this weekend. Now on to the next update. Husband is leaving me for a woman who pursued him, saying he can't let this opportunity pass, leaving me devastated and questioning if I made a mistake. My husband just told me he is leaving me and I can't believe the reason. I need to give some background. I am 34F and my husband is 38 male. We've been married for almost 2 years, have dated 2 years before that, so overall a bit more than 4 years. He's always been very insecure about himself, even though he has a great personality, or so I thought, is generous, caring, can express his emotions and all this stuff. When I got to know him better, I couldn't believe he wasn't taken. In fact, he had only been in 2 relationships in his life, both 5+ years long, though. He told me that's because he's shy and ugly and women don't really want anything from him, like, ever, especially not good-looking ones. I am fairly conventionally attractive and he has kept telling me for the past years how lucky he feels to finally have found his dream woman and then her being as attractive as me. I was wary at the beginning, though, so I let him court me quite a bit before going out with him for the first time, etc. I really was fearing for some dark secret of his that I just hadn't uncovered yet, plus I don't want to look easy. But turns out no, he's a really sweet guy, and just very shy. I also don't think he's ugly. He's not in any way super handsome or so, and frankly, originally I thought he was not my type, but his charm melted all of that away quickly. Once we started thoroughly dating, things went fast, because it all was so wonderful. Well, apparently a while ago he was on his own in the outside area of a restaurant having lunch when this woman went by, and apparently struck up a conversation with him. He's shown me a picture of her since I asked him, and she is drop dead gorgeous. Maybe I am exaggerating because I am so mad, but she definitely looks better than me, I have to admit. Frown. He didn't tell me much about what they talked, just that she was very friendly, and they exchanged numbers, and started texting more and more often. He says she at some point openly started pursuing him even though she knew he was married, saying she just really fell for him and can't let this opportunity pass. He said that he was hesitant once he realized that she was hitting on him, and he was also excited because this literally has never happened in his life. In the past, he repeatedly said that women, at least attractive ones like me, have it easy, because we can lean back and let the guys approach us, whereas for him it was always hard work to even get a single date. I always replied that it's not really like that and that being attractive has its own problems, but he then always reminded me of the fact that he had to work really hard to get me to date him, too. He swears he has only met her one more time, for lunch, after the first encounter, and that he thinks it is not yet an affair. However, he thinks he wants to go forward with her, because, as he put it, this is the first woman who is genuinely interested in me. I didn't have to text her for 3 months to get a date or anything. I can't let this pass. Or something along those lines. My memory is a bit hazy. The 3 months refers to the time it took him to get a date with me, BTW. And that is why he says he is breaking up with me. He says it's the right thing to do, because he wants to continue contact with her, but also feels doing that would be emotional cheating and he doesn't want to cheat on so he ends it before actually starting something with her. I feel devastated. I know there's nothing I can do. I want to be mad at him, but I'm also mad at myself. I really liked him when we first met. Why did I give him a hard time? If I had said what I wanted back then, if I had pursued him instead of playing hard to get, he probably wouldn't be interested in that woman. But I always felt if a woman does that, she shows she's easy and I didn't just want to get laid, so I thought I must act that way. And now it is biting me in the butt. Frown. And I of course am very mad at him, but he didn't even cheat on me. He's behaving exactly the way I always say people should act when they fall in love with someone else. Ugh. I kinda wished he had actually cheated on me with her. That would actually make it easier. Update 1. A couple days ago, I posted here about my husband suddenly leaving me because of, well, having experienced for the first time that a woman actually showed active interest in him. Since links are not allowed in this subreddit, please check my profile for my post history. Yesterday, my husband and I met for the first time since he up and left last Friday. And frankly, after the meetup, I was very shaken, so it took me until today to be able to write about this. Since so many people have reached out to me with helpful comments and all, I think you deserve an update, but I really wasn't up to it yesterday also. This is really long, so sorry in advance, there's just so much to cope with. So here we go. The situation felt very awkward, and I got the impression the whole time that he genuinely feels sorry for how things were and that what he is doing hurts me. I know many of you said he's a douche, a cheater and whatnot, and I really understand you and are mad at him myself. But on the other hand, you all do not know him like I do. He's a very honest person, he despises lying, and is really bad at this. He carries his heart on his tongue and I know him well enough to sense his feelings. Did that help me? Not much. Now, even if I wished, I couldn't paraphrase our talk, and I am sure I will miss certain things, and overall, it was a mixture of him telling and me asking questions, and all is a big flurry in my head, so I'll just summarize I guess. First he told me that he really loved me, and he still does, but he feels that his feelings for the new woman are stronger. He told me her name, let's call her Jasmine, not her real name. He admits Jasmine is gorgeous, but claims that on its own was in no ways relevant for his decision. Yeah, right, he told me that she originally approached him because of a book he was reading during lunch. Supposedly, the book's author is her uncle, and she was able to tell my husband some funny stories about the time her uncle drafted that book. He says he and Jasmine have very similar interests. Jasmine also reads sci-fi as he does, because of said uncle who is a sci-fi author, and both like gaming and stuff. He says after they exchanged numbers, they initially only wrote about stuff like that, and later on they talked about other hobbies and interests and found more and more common ground as he put it. He also admitted that like 2 weeks or so ago he started to wonder if he should actively tell me about her, seeing how she turned from an acquaintance to what he deems a friend. I interjected that they don't know each other long enough to consider her a friend, but he says he feels Jasmine is really genuine with him. This is a man who cannot pick up social clues unless they are spelled out for him, but whatever, he also feels a lot more in tune with Jasmine than he does with me. Admittedly, we seem to have less common interests, but I never felt like I have to be exactly like my partner. Opposites can complement each other well, and I always felt we do. Well, looks like he feels much happier with someone catering to his interests a lot more. He also became a bit self-critical then. He says after he left for his friend's place, he sat down and reread his conversation history with Jasmine, and he realized that she had indeed been flirting with him before she told him she wanted more. It didn't start out flirtatious, but he admits he totally missed that. He opened up the app on his phone and showed me the beginning and then when she started flirting. He might have tuned the messages, but at least the beginning's really ready friendly. The flirtatious parts however were blatantly obvious in my eyes, but he actually blames himself for that and says that while that doesn't change his feelings for her, it means he should have noticed this earlier and, well, he said, make the decision to pursue her earlier. That sort of broke me and I started sobbing, because it sounds as if I never had a chance compared to Jasmine. He even wanted to console me, and I allowed that for a couple minutes, but then I sought some distance again. It both felt good and bad to be in his arms. Then it was time to ask me why she is so attractive to him that he leaves me, his wife, for just the mere possibility of being with another woman. I mentioned that someone, I didn't say Reddit, suggested she might be a scam, or just interested in breaking up marriages and going after men who are taken, and such. He, of course, vehemently denied that. Supposedly, they met last Sunday to go out for dinner, and they talked about the fact that she approached him even though he is married, and she claims to have a really bad conscience about this, and that she never would have done it, had she not felt such a deep connection between them blah blah blah. I must admit I really struggled through that part. Because if it is true, it hurts me, and if it isn't, it hurts even more that he falls for BS. He then told me in excruciating detail about his dating life, and how long he was a virgin, and how he was always treated by girls back in middle school and high school, and by the women in college and later on, how he really feels that he always has to be the one initiating, fighting even for a chance, and felt like he was always treated as unworthy by almost all women, and how that made him bitter. He admitted that, but also how he always thought that someone who truly fits him, fits his personality, his character, his being, would be someone who would not make him jump through hoops, someone who'd outright tell him she is intrigued by him and wants him. He says he loves me dearly and was always very grateful for being with me, but that even with me he always felt somewhere between a beggar and the subject of a pity party, where I bestowed the grace of my companionship onto him instead of actually liking and wanting him. When I asked him whether that means he settled for me, he vehemently denied that. He said when we started to date, I really treated him better than any woman had done before, so he really thought this was what he had been looking for, and before meeting Jasmine he never felt like he needed more. I of course tried to tell him that I am not with him out of pity or anything, and explained why I made him wait 3 months, and why I think the man should court the woman and so forth, and then I also admitted that I might not have given him the appreciation he deserved. This time, it actually was his turn to drop tears for a bit. He said hearing that made him both grateful and unhappy that he never really communicated better about this. I told him that hearing him say that feels like he is putting the blame on me. And I swear to God, his eyes like doubled their size, and he looked genuinely shocked, and he apologized many times and said he did not want me to think he actually has any bad feelings about having to wait back then, and that this is a situation where no one is to blame, but especially not me. He said I have been a wonderful wife and all, but that with Jasmine, it just feels different, and like a deeper connection that the two of us have, and that while he thought that I was wonderful, he now realizes that what he really was looking for in life was something else. So he says reconciliation is not really an option because he realized that we're not right for each other, and even if it doesn't work out with Jasmine, he knows now that he actually needs something that I just not am. I mentioned marriage counseling, and he said that it's not like our marriage has issues, but that the issue is that we're just not right for each other. There were more things we said, and maybe I'll add some later, but right now I'm too mentally exhausted. Especially because I still don't feel like I can hate him, because he felt so freaking honest. I think he at least truly believes all the things he said, but that woman still might be a total liar or a scam. He at least promised to be careful with her financial wise, but he assured me she's not that. I don't know what to make with any of this. It hurts. I guess my marriage is over.